What's going on, everybody? This is a video regarding battery replacements and battery maintenance in general. However, today we're going to be replacing the battery on the 1988 Honda 4Trax 300 4x4. I've had this quad for about 15 years. It's been a great quad. Not a whole heck of a lot of problems, but the battery is unfortunately about 10, 12 years old, so we got to replace it. So I took the plow off and we backed it up a little bit, but it couldn't start it. As you can see, this is what happens when you have a dead or dying battery. When you hear that, here's it again. Goes to show that the battery is not doing so hot. The solenoid works, but there's not enough cold cranking amps to crank the starter to get it to go. So what we're going to be doing is replacing the battery with this right here. Enershare lithium motorcycle battery. Now, this works for this quad. It also works for my motorcycle, which I might be doing one with too. Okay, now let's get into how to do this on this particular quad. So we're going to go over here and we are going to pop the seat, which is how you do that on a Honda 4Trax 300. I'm just going to pop this up here for now because I don't need it. Normally, you would have a battery cover. I just don't have it on, but I do own it. And here's the battery. Pretty simple. There it is. Now, this battery isn't the exact fit for this model, but it's going to work pretty well. So that's the reason why I decided to do that. So what you'll need is either a 10 mil wrench here or a 10 mil socket or a number 2 or 3 Phillips. Typically, for the better aspect of getting this off, you would use a 10 millimeter socket. I'm a little lazy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my handy dandy bag. I'm going to grab this. I'm not going to use my Phillips. I'm going to use a 10 millimeter socket. So let's pop this on here. Let's take that off. Make sure we're in reverse. And off we go. Take this off. There's my winch. Here's the solenoid for the starter. Take that one off. We're going to pop this back on here because we don't want to lose these nuts.
Got it!
All right. Now we're going to take cold off, or the negative. All right. Off that goes. I'm going to pop this back in here again because we don't want to lose that. Terminal nuts. All right. Now this is in its own battery holder, so this might be a little difficult to get out. So what I'm going to do is use a Phillips head or a flathead screwdriver, not Phillips. We don't want to do that, so we're going to use number 3 flat, and we're going to pop this out like so. See if you can see this. We're going to do our best to get this out. Might fast forward this here so you don't have to be subject to all this struggle. And there we go. Okay. So, pull out the Enershare battery. Smaller, as I said. It'll still work, but this is what we're going to use.
A few moments later.
Okay, since these are simply just number 2 Phillips, we're just going to use that number 2 Phillips bit. I'm going to pull this out. Pull this out. As always, hand tighten these if you're unsure. Okay, so 400 cold cranking amps. We're going to try this guy out and see if it works first before we go too crazy. All right, the battery is plugged in. We're just going to give it a test to make sure it's on and working. So we're going to turn this on. Lights are on. Now we're going to hit the power. And now we're charging. Good to go. So that's a battery replacement on here. We're going to pop it back in here. We are going to use the little sections where we can get the battery box to work with this battery because we do want to use it. It is the Enershare. So there's also nice little foam pieces here. You do have a number 1 Phillips, which I wouldn't use, but you have these foam pieces that I'm going to use to get this work with the battery box. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to toss these aside for right now. And we're going to get into battery maintenance and tending and talk about how we're going to use a tender, which is this right here. Now, you can get this one. This is just a Harbor Freight one. These are about $7. I believe if you get them on coupon, it could be as low as $5. And they have these 2 little things right here. So in the winter, batteries tend to die over time due to the fact that it is very cold outside and they discharge. Also, if you have any sort of battery leak on your machine, which most cars and motorcycles and quads have, what you can do to mitigate that is just leave it plugged in to one of these. So what we're going to do is push this a little bit further forward, and we're going to show you how this works. So one thing you don't want to do when you have a tender running is turn the key on and crank it over, because the tender actually can't handle that many amperages. So here's the AC adapter right here. So before you actually go ahead and plug that in, what we're going to do is plug it into the battery itself. So positive goes on positive, and negative goes on negative. And if you've done this correctly, the tender itself will light up without being plugged in. Next thing you do is you take your plug and plug it in. And that is the extent of everything you need to do with a tender. And now what this will do over time is just have your battery remain on and usable while you don't use the machine. Now, this machine gets very little use, sometimes plowing. Obviously, this year we didn't have enough snow, so haven't needed a plow. But if I go start this up 6 months from now, I'll know that the battery tender and the new battery will be good enough to use for when we do that. Now, a couple cool things to note about the Enershare battery is there is a universal system that batteries in places that these would normally not fit to fit inside of. So you can see right here, there's a riser, and there's already a riser plugged in. So we're just going to pop another riser in there. And since this has a higher cold cranking amps than the battery I was using, this will actually start this vehicle a lot easier. Another thing is if you have a little bit wider of a battery box like I do right here, and you notice it doesn't fit, what you can do is you can take these handy dandy foam stickies and stick them right on the side of your battery. We're going to put the battery box in like so, and we're going to stick these on each side, and then we're going to slide it in there. So feel free to reach out, leave a comment with any questions you have regarding quads or how you tend your batteries. If I've done anything incorrectly, let me know and discuss it in the comment section below. So everybody, hope this helped, and that's how you replace a battery on a 1988 to 2000 Honda 4Trax 300 4x4, and how you tend a battery for any single device. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.